Hi, everyone. Thanks for attending our webinar today for Cybersecurity Awareness Month. We'll be discussing how to stay cyber safe while working, sharing, and being social online. This is presented by the IT operations team. My name is Paige, and I'm a security operations analyst. We have Sean here as well, who's the lead of security operations. Mark, the Director of IT Security and Architecture, joined here to answer any questions you may have later. Okay, before we begin, we'll spend a quick moment to acknowledge the traditional territories of the people of the Treaty 7 region in southern Alberta, which includes the Blackfoot Confederacy, comprising the Siksika, Piikani, and Kainai First Nations, as well as the Tsuut'ina First Nation and the Stoney Nakoda, including the Chiniki, Bearspaw, and Wesley First Nations. The city of Calgary is also home to Métis Nations of Alberta Region 3. To begin with, let's talk about Cybersecurity Awareness Month. What is it? It's a campaign that takes place October every year. And this year's theme is Do Your Part, Be Cyber Smart. And it puts an emphasis on personal accountability and the importance of proactively enhancing cybersecurity at home as well as at work. So users play a very important role in cybersecurity. And the users are considered the first line of defense against cybersecurity attacks. Tactics of attacks involve targeting end users as an entry point. So what do we need to be aware of then? It is important to understand what responsibilities we have as an end user. Also, we need to understand what threats we are constantly under, and of course, how to protect ourselves from those threats. So the internet keeps us in touch and spending time with people, no matter where you are physically. And how can we make sure to stay safe while being social online? Let's talk about phishing first. How can we avoid phishing scams we encounter so often these days? Emails are one of the most common way of communicating with others at work as well as home nowadays. Phishing is a major tactic that attackers use for their attack. There are a few clues you can watch out for in order to detect phishing emails. First, check the sender address. Does it match the name of the sender printed in the email you received? Does it look suspicious, like the example here? Phishing emails often have spelling mistakes as well. Also, here are some questions you want to ask yourself. Are you actually expecting such emails, or are they relevant to you? And the attackers often use exaggerated urgency to lure you to click the phishing link. It is important that you report those phishing emails when you encounter, and the information about them is shared amongst ourselves, because it helps us prevent further impact within the whole UCalgary community. You can use the report phishing button you see on your Outlook to report suspicious emails, and also email us at reportphishing@ucalgary.ca. We also offer training in enterprise learning available now to everyone, and it's called Introduction to Phishing. If you'd like to know more about phishing, we highly recommend taking the course. Okay, how about our private information? We definitely want to keep it safe online. We often share special moments online, especially on social media. Before we post anything online, we need to make sure it doesn't contain any of our personal information. Some information can be used for an attack against your account and identity, such as birth date. And information that can be used for your security questions shouldn't be shared online either. And the examples are your address or your family members' names. Okay. Also, we want to make sure we are the only person who can access our own login account. Compromising accounts is the easiest way for attackers to get into an information system. It also provides some critical information to them that poses threat for your own privacy as well. So then what makes our account secure? We need complex passwords or strong passphrases, and we can share some tips around them here. You should use different password or passphrases for different accounts, because it can prevent attackers from compromising your account on a different platform after getting a hold of that on another platform, like a domino effect. You can use a password manager to manage multiple passwords or passphrases more easily. Okay, so what makes your password complex then? Using passphrases is a very good practice. Password length is very important, and mixing different character types increases the strength. So I would recommend using a passphrase since it makes it strong and easy to remember, like the example here in the slide. It is also essential to have multi-factor authentication, aka MFA, enable for your account as well. Multi-factor authentication is an electronic authentication method in which you're granted access to your account only after successfully presenting 2 or more pieces of information. So what you know, such as password or passphrase, and what you have, such as the code that appears on your Authenticator app. So without MFA, when attackers get a hold of your password caused by a bad password practice, for example, they can easily access your account without any extra hurdle. So extra protection for your account is provided by MFA. Because it is very difficult for attackers to know the timed code from MFA or to have access to your Authenticator app or device. Next, we'll have Sean to talk about a few more aspects of staying cyber secure. Over to you, Sean.
Thank you, Paige. As Paige indicated, my name is Sean Murray, and I'm the lead for the IT Cybersecurity Operations team at the University of Calgary. I report into Mark Sly, Director of Architecture and Security. I'd like to talk next about cyber safety related to sharing and collaboration. This includes file sharing, anti-malware software, backups, and security configuration. Next slide, please. So first, let's talk a little bit about file and information sharing. Files can be shared using a variety of technologies. These include file servers, email, cloud-based applications such as OneDrive and SharePoint, or even social applications like Facebook or Instagram. Sharing files and other information has become an important part of both our work and home life, and it won't be going away anytime soon. Let's talk about this at home first. Many of us use personal file sharing cloud applications like Dropbox or OneDrive. Those services typically have default settings, and in most cases, those settings can be changed to be more secure than the default. You can add things like multi-factor authentication that we talked about previously. You can add notifications for when your account is logged into, and you can change things like the default sharing permissions. So it's a good idea to have a look at these settings and update them to best meet your needs and be as safe as possible. Let's move on to the work environment. So UCalgary has a number of sharing platforms, including OneDrive, Teams, SharePoint, and traditional file shares, amongst many others. Some of these platforms have choices you can make at the time that you're sharing data that can make them more or less secure. An example might be when you're sharing a file using Teams, it gives you an opportunity to choose several types of links to be sent to the recipients. The least secure type is sending a link that anyone can use. And that allows it to be passed on to more people, and you kind of lose control over who's going to access that link. So it's best suited to less sensitive data. And on the other end of the scale is sending a link that only specific people can use. And that means the people would have to authenticate before they would access that file, and that prevents it from being shared with other people. So you should know and understand the settings and options that are available to you in these platforms, especially when handling sensitive data. For those of you that might know, UCalgary actually has a data classification policy that defines different levels of data. Information on that can be found on the UCalgary website, and those classifications range from public all the way up to restricted data types. Next slide, please. Next, let's talk a little bit about malware. So malware is generally any piece of software that has a malicious purpose. You might have heard other terms like virus, Trojan, worm, and these are just specific categories of malware. So it should be obvious that we don't want malware on our systems. So how do we avoid getting it? First off, only install approved software and only get it from reputable sources. At UCalgary, the Software Center on Windows machines and the software distribution site on the IT section of the website are where you get approved and safe copies of software. So you want to avoid as much as possible getting it from shareware sites and other things that you have no control over the source. Secondly, you should browse only reputable websites and don't approve any installations of anything while browsing, unless it's something you want to install. Malicious websites can install unwanted software. Also, you should be cautious about opening attachments to emails and clicking on links in emails. These can also lead to infections on your system. So why are we concerned about malware? Malware can steal your personal information, including passwords, files, pictures, and anything else on your computer. Malware can spy on you in real time, sending live video and audio. Malware can also destroy or encrypt your files and other data and prevent you from accessing them. So what else can we do? One of the best things is to run antivirus software in our systems, and you'll notice that all UCalgary systems run antivirus. So antivirus runs in the background, keeping an eye on your system and preventing malware from getting a foothold on your system. You may notice once in a while it pops up and warns you that you've encountered a virus or other kind of malware. It's also important to note that this isn't 100% effective. And so it's important to follow the other best practices and not rely on it entirely. Lastly, but not least, is to keep your devices up to date. Your computers, your phones, your tablets, and even the things you might not think of, like your home automation devices, such as doorbells and cameras, can all be updated. It's a good idea to do this regularly, or if possible, set it up to happen automatically, like you can with your phone. In the case that the worst happens, how can you tell if you've been infected? The bottom line is any new or abnormal behaviors may indicate an infection. You can see some of those behaviors listed on the slide to the right in the orange. I'll give you a sec to read that. Can I have the next slide, please? Despite your best efforts, sometimes bad things can happen, both to your systems and your data. That's why it's vitally important to have regular backups. It's also important to ensure that your backups will not be affected by the same events as your original data. To accomplish this, you need to store your backups on removable media or use something like a cloud service. This isolates your backups from whatever might happen to your primary data stores. If you have a personal or corporate OneDrive account, you can actually set up, for instance, OneDrive to back your system up automatically to the cloud. And this also helps in that you can replicate data to multiple devices if you use more than one device at a time. But the good thing is there's protections built into there, and should your data disappear on you, we can recover it from OneDrive. So what kind of things might happen that would require you to revert to your backups? Well, one of the more common things is ransomware these days, which can encrypt or just delete your files. And then also technology like hard drives can actually fail. They usually have a useful lifetime of 2 to 5 years, and anything after that, you're risking your data. Sometimes files can be accidentally deleted. I've done that myself. And in any of these situations, a backup may be your only way to recover your files and data. So you definitely want to have backups. Next slide, please. So coming up, we're going to discuss working remotely in a safe manner. This includes using Wi-Fi, other devices, and home network security as well, and some threats specific to your work life. Remote work has become more of a norm than the exception these days, especially during COVID times. And I think we can expect it to remain a part of our work life for the foreseeable future. Next slide, please. So let's begin with the risks involved in using Wi-Fi networks, especially public Wi-Fi networks. So we're talking about the Starbucks networks, the bookstore networks, those kind of things. So not all networks should be trusted. It's very difficult to tell a trustworthy network from an untrustworthy network. Truth be told, a hacker can call any network anything he wants. So he could easily spin up a network that's called Starbucks and sit in the Starbucks cafe, as you can see our nice fellow there in blue on the slide is doing. So given that it's hard to know what networks you can trust, what can you do to protect yourself while using Wi-Fi? And I mean, it's convenient to use Wi-Fi, so we're going to use it. And the answer is to use VPN, or virtual private network. Now there's private VPN services that you can buy or for free, or you can use the UCalgary's VPN. So what is a VPN? A VPN is an encrypted tunnel between 2 points that make it impossible for anyone, including a hacker, in between those 2 points to see your traffic. It hides your traffic from prying eyes and basically escorts it from one end of the tunnel to the other end of the tunnel. As you can see depicted in the diagram here, your computer would talk back to the University of Calgary, and then your traffic would go out the University of Calgary's interfaces to hit the internet, and it would protect you from anyone seeing that traffic in between. Next slide, please. So what can we do working from home to be more safe? Well, we've already talked about passwords, and this applies at home as well as at work. We should use good password practices everywhere, and using a password manager, as mentioned before, is a good idea. There are commercial versions as well as free alternatives, and some are based in the cloud and some you install locally on your devices. Secondly, when you're at home, make sure you change the default passwords on your devices and things like firewalls. Ensure your internet access device is configured securely according to the instructions provided by your internet provider. So companies like Shaw and Rogers and others usually either provide you instructions written when you sign up for a service, or there's instructions available online. Lastly, we'd like you to use a filtered DNS service. One example of that is Sierra DNS. So DNS is kind of like a phone book for the internet. It translates friendly web addresses like ucalgary.ca into the actual numbers that the internet works on, which are not friendly for human use. So Sierra DNS is a service provided by the government of Alberta. It's free, and it's essentially a phone book for the internet with the malicious addresses for websites removed. There are several options available, including one that's suitable for children that would protect your children from surfing to adult content. In general, this service just basically stops you from being able to go to these bad websites. Your internet provider or the U-Service desk can assist you in setting up your home network or even your individual devices to use the Sierra DNS service. It's free and it really works very well. It's fairly transparent to end users. Next slide, please. So I wanted to talk a little bit about threats specific to your work environment. At UCalgary, we regularly see attempts to exploit users for malicious purposes, sometimes to steal information, sometimes for financial gain and other malicious purposes. As discussed previously, one of the techniques that we see fairly often is impersonation, pretending to be someone you are not in order to aid in a scam or malicious activity. So we see these can take a number of different forms. It can be in an email, in a phone call, in an instant message, and even a text on your phone. Pretty much any communication medium could be used. So to give you an example, in the case of an email, you might get an email that at first glance appears to come from somebody at UCalgary, like say the president, but upon closer examination, you might notice that the email address belongs to a non-UCalgary source like Gmail. This is a dead giveaway that it's not the person that they're representing themselves to be. So social engineering is another common tactic that we see bad guys using, and Paige mentioned a few of them earlier. You can see a definition of social engineering to the right there in the orange box on the slide. So they might impress upon you a sense of urgency, as discussed before, to get you to do something. And this might include typing your password into a fake password change site, or clicking on a link in an email, or something else that they might want you to do. And they can also use things like intimidation and other psychological tricks to get you to do something or to give up information that they want. So they kind of prey on our human tendencies, and you can see a few of the ones that they might use at the bottom left of this slide. So what can we do about these things? So the best thing is to be aware that these can happen, to remain calm, and don't get rushed or pressured into doing anything. Stop and think things through before acting, especially if you get a feeling that something isn't right. A good mantra is trust but verify. Make a call, send an email or text, check with that person's administrative assistant, or even ask the person you're interacting with some questions. If it's a malicious person, it very often will scare them off if you start asking some pointed questions and they realize that you're not going to just do what they ask. So trust your instincts. If it seems off, look into it a little bit further. Now, some of these things may seem somewhat scary, but armed with the appropriate knowledge, you can safely interact with the cyber world. Our purpose here is not to instill a sense of fear in you and scare you, but to empower you to recognize these situations and handle them appropriately should they arise. Next slide, please. Lastly, I'd like to leave you with some contacts that you can use if you experience a cybersecurity issue or have more questions regarding cybersecurity. As Paige mentioned previously, you can use the menu item in Outlook to report phishing, or you can use the report phishing email address. And as always, the use service desk is available to assist in any of these situations. Next slide, please. So as a final note, for those of you with an interest in cybersecurity as a career, the computing science department offers some very good educational opportunities, and you might want to take advantage of those if this interests you. That concludes our presentation for today. And if you have any questions, we could get you to raise your hand or use the Q&A functionality, and Mark, Paige, and myself will do our best to answer. We want to thank you for spending your lunch hour with us today.
Okay, hello. Yeah, thank you, Sean and Paige. It's very, very informative. So yeah, like Sean said, there we're going to start the Q&A section. I've been trying hard in the background here to answer your questions by text, and I hope I've been doing a good job in getting you the answers you need. Maybe we'll do the rest. Yeah. So some of the questions I've already answered, and you might be able to see them in the QA section, is our password manager secure? And my answer is yes, secure password managers are available out there. And we recommend that you Google like the top 10 password managers out there and use reputable sites like CNET or Forbes or Gartner or, Geek Squad or whichever one that you trust in your personal life or technology information. And they'll give you a list and a comparison of the different password managers and kind of like what features they have and if there's a cost or if there's a free version and what you get for the free and the paid for version. And picking the right one for you is kind of the key there. And I also put in a link in there for the Get Cybersafe, which is the Canadian government website from the Canadian Centre of Cybersecurity on kind of how to secure your accounts with password managers. So hopefully that helps everybody out there. And another question came in is, I will be traveling for 6 weeks and how can I avoid MFA since I won't be able to receive text messages? And so my answer there was, you can download the Microsoft Authenticator app on your phone. Doesn't mean UCalgary has access to anything. It's just a random digit number that comes through that's associated with your account. And it can get you in from anywhere in the world with or without an internet connection. And that's the benefit of having that. And if you're a researcher and you're not going to be taking your phone, and this leads into another question of like, I don't have a mobile phone and what are my options? We do have options available for people such as that and use cases such as that. And please call UService and they'll work with you and my team in security to get you the right option. But we do have alternatives for people who don't have mobile devices. And then the quick question was, what can you do to stay safe if we have to download forms and documents? So the answer to that was make sure the website you're going to is a reputable one and the one that you want to go to download the form. And so like if somebody sends you a link and says download the form, you want to follow page's tips on whether it's a phish or not, right? And make sure it's not a phish. And if it's a reputable site like Microsoft.com or the UCalgary website, that's a reputable site where you download forms and stuff like that for UCalgary, that's okay. But we always recommend to make sure you're running antivirus on your PC, whether it be Apple or Windows or Droid. They all have different flavors. All the vendors out there have different flavors of antivirus protection for different operating systems. And please ensure that your operating system and your device is up to date, like Sean was talking about, also known as being patched. You want a patch, and you're going to hear that from the Canadian Centre of Cybersecurity, which is the government-funded wing of our intelligence service specifically for cybersecurity. And so, yeah. And can I get a copy of the presentation? Yes, we are recording it, and yeah, we will make it available to people. So that will be coming up. And so is there any antivirus software necessary for Apple products? And the answer was yes, all operating systems are susceptible to being exploited by malicious software. And so, again, all these things that Sean and Paige talked about staying safe and being aware and caring about what you do online, that's going to help you. And there's also several antivirus vendors out there, anti-malware vendors out there on the market that can help you protect your Apple products or whatever product you have pretty much. What's the UC's stance on Google Docs? So yeah, I kind of give you the standard, politically safe answer is UCalgary's primary tools for file data sharing and collaboration is Microsoft OneDrive, which is my files, that's your personal files. And then we also have Microsoft Teams, which is our team files. And so you can use either of those platforms to share and collaborate and work with your team or work on your personal files and share that with people as well. OneDrive is also a good tool for backing up your PC. And somebody asked the question of, can you paste the link on how to back up your PC with OneDrive? And then, yeah, Paige and Sean, I think we should add that link in here for the quick links. And you can always call UService to help you get that set up as well. So if you need it immediately, call UService. They'll help you turn on the desktop backup so it backs up your My Documents, your favorites, the files that you have on your desktop to your OneDrive account automatically. And then the next question was, I don't have a cell phone. So yeah, contact you service and we'll help you with the alternatives to not having a cell phone for multi-factor authentication. What's next here? Okay. So what do you think of biometric passes? Oh, Sean, you answered that one. They should probably be reserved for the most secure, sensitive application. Once lost, they cannot be changed. Okay, so thanks for answering that, Sean. Sean answered that one. I use VPN from home on my cell phone and on my cell phone. Understand it does not protect my text messages or anything that does. And Sean's answer was text messages are by nature insecure. If you need security, use an alternative messaging app. That's right. So you kind of hear about like iMessage and WhatsApp and Signal and messaging apps out there such as that Facebook, and they all say you have end-to-end encryption. And what that means is that your message is encrypted from your device all the way through the internet to the other person's device. And then that's how they're saying that your message is secure end to end. And when you're using a cellular network, you don't have that same encryption from one device to the other when you're sending it as an SMS or text message, also known as a text message. It's safe to check your UCalgary emails on your iPhones. Yes. The answer is yes, it is. And as Sean mentioned in his answer here, it's always good to make sure that you keep your iPhones or your Android devices or whichever mobile device you decide to use up to date, and that makes sure they have the latest security around that. And there's help articles on our ServiceNow page or our IT page that can help you get set up on your iPhone or your Android for your email at UCalgary. Okay, yeah, Sean answered the password manager question. So yeah, is there a specific password manager out there? There's lots out there. I can mention a few, but I don't really have a preference for any of them. And I don't generally like to promote products. That's why we're saying we're kind of like, Google the top 10 and choose the right one for you. But there's 1Password and Password One, and there's a whole bunch of different flavors out there. Even Apple has one built into their operating system for you that if you go into settings and passwords, you can put your passwords in there. And so it really depends on, what you want for functionality out of your password manager, but just make sure you pick a reputable one. And the three that I mentioned, I would consider reputable. How do you access the UC VPN? Oh, okay, yeah. So you can go to our IT help page, and if you just type in VPN into the search, there's a how-to on how to use our VPN. And again, multi-factor authentication is required to get into the VPN site there. Is UCalgary OneDrive being backed up automatically, or do I have to set that up myself? So yeah, so the answer is yes. In the back end, Microsoft does have a backup of it for OneDrive. I believe it's maybe I shouldn't quote myself. We'll place the link in the knowledge base article for OneDrive, and it tells you how many days that it retains a copy of the documents you're working on. You can also turn on versioning, and that's also in the how-to documents. So Paige and Sean, let's add the OneDrive how-to to the useful links here as well. And that'll help people get started there on that.
So a number of people have asked for specific product recommendations. And what I've found is a site like PC Magazine's website is a good source for reviews of different products. So technically we're not allowed to really favor one product over another, but essentially if you stick with the big names and do a bit of research on the reviews, you should be fine.
And Robin, I saw your question about is there a safe way to visit websites for accreditation of foreign universities? That one, if you actually want to reach out to Sean and Paige or myself and we can walk you through how to, on websites where you can check them and how to do that. And we can give you some tools and tips and tricks there for that one. Yeah. We're doing that specifically for university business. We'd like to give you the right kind of tools and websites to check if it's a valid website that you're actually going to for that university. And well, Sean Pager will help you with that. And then is UCalgary OneDrive being backed up? We have answered that one. Please share the slides. We will. I also wish to have the slides. Great. Lots of thank yous. Yeah, that's the end of the questions.
There's a question that I
what's
want to
that?
address. So it's about traveling safe internationally regarding your device and things like that. So there's a website in risk. So you have to go to ucalgary.ca /risk to visit to see more information about how to travel safely. And we also offer a program for international travel loaner device. So you can loan a specific device when you travel for any security concerns.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, so that's available on the risk website. You know, to the risk website for University of Calgary. All the travel infos are like Peter was saying. And we have a loaner device program for researchers or academics traveling or people traveling in business to other countries. So another question is for level 4 info, patient name, etc. Is that UCalgary email safe enough to email each other within the UFC community? So yeah, yes, our email is approved for level 4 data, and then we turned on email encryption for when you email parties outside of the University of Calgary. And again, you can go to our IT support page and you can search email encryption, and it'll show you how you can encrypt your email when you're emailing with external parties to the University of Calgary with important information. And it doesn't just have to be level 3. It can just be like you feel that this is important or private to you and you don't want to send it over the internet and you want to make sure it's encrypted. And yeah, so that's good. And what antivirus do you recommend for unmanaged computers? Sean's just typing an answer, so we'll wait for him to answer that. Then receiving emails from quarantine and messaging at Microsoft.com every day after office hours, where it is mentioned as prevented spam messages. I select block the sender option of regular receiving emails. Most of the emails that were blocked are from project affiliates. So if it goes into quarantine and it's a message that you don't want quarantine, you can call U service and they can walk you through putting in a setting so that it's on your safe senders list is kind of what it's called, or this email is not junk. And what that does is that adds it to the Microsoft engine, because we use Microsoft email here at UCalgary to hopefully identify it as not spam or not quarantine mail. And remember, when you go into quarantine, sometimes there are phishing emails out there that look like it's from the person you want it to be, and it might not be. And it also could be that the link that they sent you has a malicious end to it. So if you click the link, it's a bad website. And Microsoft will quarantine those websites. If somebody sends you a bad link or thinks it's a bad link, they'll quarantine that email with a bad link in there too. So just be careful of releasing things from quarantine and use those phishing tips and tricks that Paige talked about earlier. And Sean, I believe you answered. Yeah. Oh, I can't see it anymore because he answered it. What was the answer for the unmanaged computers antivirus?
Basically, I said if you look at some of the reputable sites like pcmagazine.com, look through the reviews and see what features you need. And the bottom line is any of the big name commercial products are fine.
Yeah, I'd agree with that statement. And if you're Microsoft Windows 10 and above, whether it be home or professional. The Microsoft antivirus is actually rated as very, very good these days, and they put a lot of money into security for protecting their products, obviously, because they're very much of interest by the malicious and hacker community or threat actor community, depending on what you want to call that community. And as long as you keep it up to date and turn on all the ransomware protection and things like that, it's going to be pretty good. And like Sean said, the big ones out there like Trend Micro and McAfee and, Sophos and other ones. But like Sean said, PC Magazine, Google the right one for you, and that'll help you. Is Avast free antivirus good enough antivirus software for your home computers? So yeah, there are free antiviruses out there. And again, to me, what's your level of risk tolerance for your antivirus software? And, they're probably going to be pretty good. And, again, review the features of what the free one does compared to the pay one. Is it within your comfort level of protection and what's important to you? And if you feel it's enough, then good. And if you don't, then pay for one that gives you the more features, I think is the guidance there. And so there's a good one from Claudia about making sure your family members know about these protections and cybersecurity knowledge. Yes, I saw Sean just answered that. It disappeared from my one. Sean, do you want to finish answering that one?
Oh, sorry, I was typing. I didn't hear what you were saying.
Yeah, no, I said so if you can answer that one about telling your family members. And
Oh yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah, education is key. Everyone should be up to date on their personal responsibilities with regards to their personal information, and should keep up to date.
Yeah, there's a saying in the security community called "people are the perimeter," and so what that means is humans make human errors, and naturally, not that we want to. And that's how a lot of these threat actors get in, is just from, human error mistake by anybody. Could be me, could be Paige, could be Sean. And I hope it isn't. We should know not to do that. But yeah, it's kind of be careful. And, the more people that are aware of cybersecurity and how to watch for malicious events, the better off the entire community is.
There's one there from Lorinda Wootland. If a personal PC is used to do work for U of C work, do we need to have central IT image this personal PC before working with level 4 SCDS information? I'll let you answer that one, Mark.
Okay, that's a good question. Where is
Lorinda? So basically, can you work on level 4 data on a personal machine?
Yeah. So I believe there's a terms of use for secure compute and data services is what SCDS is out there. And what that is, that's our researcher platform for storing level 3 and level 4 data, whether it's personally identifiable or health data. And in there, they have different platforms for sharing and collaboration, and virtual machines for researchers to work with that sensitive information. And so I would follow all the guidelines that you signed up for when you signed up for SCDS. And on there, I believe you are supposed to be using a work PC, but they do have what's called a Citrix option, and that can be used from different devices. But yeah, please go back to the Secure Compute website and just follow their guidance on what you're supposed to be using there for that level 4 data with SCDS, Secure Compute data sharing specifically, please. Yeah, it's a good question. Okay. Personal PC is being used for U of C work. Do we need to have? Oh yeah, that was the same one. Yeah. Okay, is it always safe to do multi-factor on stuff we use? For example, Zoom, having access to our phone numbers. So using the multi-factor authentication in UCalgary, we actually don't, we don't have like access to your phone number. Like, it's whatever device you register, phone number you register, and that doesn't get shared with any of the applications out there. That's tied to your Microsoft Microsoft account with UCalgary. And so there'd be no concerns about that phone number leaking out from your. Are password managers tied to operating systems? Generally password managers are independent. They're usually apps on your phone, and some of them actually have plugins and stuff for your web browser in your PC for whether you're running Apple or Microsoft Windows, and it can help you with that. I think there's even some out there for Linux if you run Linux. What about Google Password Manager, Microsoft Authenticator app? So yeah, there's the Google Authenticator and the Microsoft Authenticator app. Both of them can be used with multiple services for your multi-factor authentication with your accounts, whether it be personal or work or whatever. Just depends on which one it supports. And when you get there with the app, you scan the QR code that comes up on the screen for your Google account or your Microsoft account or your Facebook account. And what that does is that gives you the random generator for the app to understand what is going to be your random code after you put in your password. I'd say both are safe to use. Google and Microsoft Authenticator, they're both good applications for that. What kind of protection should we have on your cell phones? So, like I mentioned before, I think all operating systems are, have vulnerabilities that can be exploited by malicious actors out there. And, it's good practice to make sure that the apps you're downloading are safe and you're not rooting your phone. What that means is you have like root level access and unlock your phone so that you can do things with the operating system it's not meant to do on Apple devices or Droids. And that's kind of how the malicious actors get in with their apps, is when you kind of unlock those features, unlock those security controls that they have in. But there are antivirus vendors out there for your phone, like I was mentioning, for all devices, and you can get those from the app stores for Droid or for Apple as you see fit. Is there any disadvantage of security? That's kind of a fun question. So there's lots of things between usability and security, and but I need to use this and make it easier. But wait, you need to do this to be secure. And so I'd say it's kind of that happy balance. And I actually just presented at a conference on some of this stuff, and there's kind of the security mentality of what's called checkbox compliance. You have to do all these things to be secure, and then hey, let's take a risk-based approach and let the organization and the business choose what level of risk that they have for how we configure things or how we do things. And that's kind of the approach going forward, is let's take a risk-based approach. Yes, still some of the common controls of checkbox compliance are required, but so I guess there is the advantage and disadvantage. If you don't do any security, you're probably going to get breached or have your account hacked. And if you do it, it might make it a little bit harder, or it takes you 15 seconds longer to get into your account. So it's that balance. Yeah. An email be sent with no risk, say UFC to Shaw or other public email addresses. Is there any chance that this could be intercepted? Understanding is Microsoft is quite secure, but between other service providers, it is not secure. So yeah, there's a lot of big technical answer for that one. But in general, if you're using your UCalgary account and you're interacting with people outside of the University of Calgary, and you want to make sure that your message is secure when you send it to them, or if it's sensitive data, you can use the email encryption feature, and you can get to that from our ServiceNow website or our IT support website. And just put in the search, put in email encryption. It'll show you how to encrypt your message out to those people. But in general, if you're not, anything can be intercepted if they really want us, but are they watching you? Maybe not. So, but if you want to be safe, use the email encryption feature. That's why we enabled it at the start of COVID, just so that people could have that extra layer of protection emailing outside of the University of Calgary. And that would be great. How secure is public Wi-Fi? For example, sitting at a Starbucks. So Sean, do you want to answer this one? You kind of answered it in your presentation.
Sure. So public Wi-Fi in general is not secure. And the reason being, you actually have no idea who's at the other end of that Wi-Fi. It might be labeled Starbucks, but you don't know if it's the guy sitting next to you with a laptop that's just spun it up himself. So essentially, we recommend that you use a VPN service with any public Wi-Fi.
Good. Yeah, and VPN is always there if you want it as well. Good. What's the biggest cybersecurity threats right now? Now, there's a lot. You kind of see them out there. But again, I think it goes back to about being aware and caring about your privacy and what you do with your devices. But I'd say some of the biggest threats right now, and a lot of them are in the news, you kind of see ransomware and next generation ransomware that's happening out there to larger institutions. And it actually hits a lot of home individuals as well. You'd be surprised. There's quite a market for those hackers out there getting quite a good monetary value out of hitting home users and small offices and small businesses. So using all the protections we talked about today are going to help you. There's never a stance of I am fully secure. And really, if a threat actor or a nation state specifically wants somebody, they're probably going to get them. But if you put all the right protections in place, you're gonna avoid that. But phishing, ransomware, business email compromise. What business email compromise is kind of like they're like small little requests where they send you an invoice, and because you're a large organization, you just process the invoice and pay them, and they make billions of dollars off that per year. And so business email compromise is a big threat out there right now too. So, yeah. Okay. Is Shako Wi-Fi secure? Yeah, so same rules as the Starbucks Wi-Fi, I would say for that one. If you're outside of your home Wi-Fi network or the UCalgary Wi-Fi network, I would consider it the same as being like directly on the internet. You need to be careful. You can use a VPN service or however you keep your device secure. So VPN service, antivirus, those kinds of things, the tips and tricks that we shared today. Okay, did I miss any, Sean, on the page? We've got 5 minutes left. Oh, at least I did miss one. We think about the use of MFA services like Auth for hosting MFA tokens. So if you're talking about like for yourself, or like which multi-factor authentication service you're going to use for say an application you run or something out there, yeah, at the University of Calgary, we prefer that you work with our single sign-on services and our multi-factor authentication if you're running an application out there. But there's several out there, and if you need MFA on your application that isn't hosted by UCalgary, or you do it yourself as a researcher, that IT doesn't work with you to help you manage that application, then I would just do your due diligence and follow the software acquisition process so that you can have that threat risk assessment to understand the posture of that service and how secure that service is that you're looking to get into. Oh, I often receive notifications of quarantine emails, and I click to block those emails within the notifications, but I still keep receiving quarantines on them. Why is that? Paige, do you want to answer that one?
Which one, please?
I often receive notifications of quarantine emails, and I click to block those emails within the notifications, but still keep receiving quarantine on them. Why is that?
It could be the sender using different tactics to avoid Sorry.
Okay.
So yeah, I think I misunderstood the question.
Yeah, so I think what you can do is you can call U-Service if you think there's a problem there, but
Yeah.
emails going into quarantine, that's a good thing. Just let them keep going in there. Eventually they'll give up. I guess it just is kind of annoying probably getting that quarantine email every day, and I get that. You got to look through them, and that's kind of a pain. But it is doing its job to protect you.
Yeah, by quarantining those emails.
Yeah.
We have a question here from Norman Shachar. Hopefully I said that right. His question is, how do you get on a VPN when out and about? Do you have to pre-register? Well, that depends on what VPN you're using. So generally, if you have an internet connection on your device, you can use VPN. And if you download, say, the University of Calgary's VPN client on your device, you can turn it on whenever you have an internet connection, and it would use whatever is available and would VPN your traffic back to the university.
Good. Is it safe to share identifiers from UCalgary account to another UCalgary account? Apologize, I don't really know what you're asking by that question. You could reword one, and we might be able to answer that. I don't know what identifiers from one UCalgary account to another means. I apologize. I worked at a big hospital, corporations in Toronto, and ransomware software was a real threat. Got such an email, reported it to IT immediately. There was follow-up from IT for a week, and they advised I report it to the police, but let them know that UHN IT was involved. Besides reporting it to IT, what other precautions does UFC have? So in terms of protecting UCalgary from ransomware, we do have what's called a defense in depth model. So you kind of think of it as like layers of an onion. So we have different layers that protect us from ransomware. And part of one of those layers is actually security awareness. So going back to that, people are the perimeter, and we want to educate people so that they don't get tricked by these malicious actors out there to click links and things like that to allow these people to get a foothold inside our environment. So it's like Sean answered that question, but no, please report it to U-Service if something funny is going on. Service and IT will work with you to check that out. But know that we do run a risk-based approach program here with layers of an onion, like I was saying, called the defense in depth model to protect us from several threats. But nothing's perfect out there, but we sure do well with what we have. And, a part of it is you out there protecting us as well. So I appreciate everybody being vigilant on cybersecurity matters. With respect to trying to block quarantine messages, unwanted messages, we get the Alberta Motor Association and RCR and other known companies. So I don't think they're changing all the time. Are there any other solutions? So if you're trying to block like a specific sender, you can just report it as junk, and it'll start to go into your junk folder, and you just ignore it and it'll go away after 15 or 25 days or something like that. So if you are getting emails from a specific sender all the time, you can just report them as junk, and then they'll go to your junk folder and they'll just rotate out after 15 or 25 days. I can't remember what the life cycle is on that folder.
I think we
Good. Well,
answered all
we're
the
over time
questions.
here. Yeah, we're over time here. That was a really good session, and thank you, Sean and Paige, for giving such a great presentation. And thank you to everybody in the community here for staying on, and, talking to us and listening to us and asking questions and being interested in cybersecurity. That's how we stay safe here at UCalgary. So please, please stay engaged and please stay informed and please care about your privacy and cybersecurity. And as Sean said, if there's any students on the line here, you're interested in cybersecurity, please reach out to computer science. They have some really amazing professors in cybersecurity and some Canada leading programs. And so you want to get involved there. I think they have a great program. So I think that's it. We'll wrap it up. Sean and Paige, do you have anything to add?
So we still have 10 questions. Well, I guess some of them you've answered verbally.
Yeah, we answered
I
them
think I answered. Okay.
verbally. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't see any new ones that we haven't addressed really.
There's one person that's asking about protection on your cell phones. So a cell phone generally is a closed system these days, like iPhone, and they vet all the software and stuff. So it's much safer than a desktop, but there still are products available if you feel you need extra protection. So most of the commercial anti-malware softwares have a cell phone client as well, either iOS or Android or any of the others. Were we planning on sharing the slides?
Yeah.
Okay, so several people asked about that.
Yeah, no, well, yeah, Shannon, our communications.
Yes, we will be sharing the slides and the recording in the follow-up email. Please be watching for it in the next several days.
Okay, great. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Again, thanks to the community for participating here.